Hello, class. Today, we have our last lesson on types of questions. The last type of question is called the connection question. This is again the authentic question tree. The connection question is the last type of question. This slide shows the definition of a connection question. A connection question makes connections, and these connections can be divided into two kinds. One type of connection is between the story and things you have read, seen, or heard in the past. The other type of connection is between the story and things that others in the group have experienced or shared with you. This picture may give you a better idea of the first type of connection. We can see the connection between what the boy is reading, Frozen, and what he has read, seen, or heard as shown in the bubbles. So, a connection question might be, how is the story The Frog Prince similar to the movie Frozen? This asks for the connection between the boy's current reading and what he has read in the past. Here is another question. Is Sleeping Beauty more like Anna or Elsa? This also asks about the connection between the story and what has been read in the past. And here is one last question. Is Olaf the snowman anything like the huge snowman we built last winter at recess? In this case, the question asks about the connection between the story and what has been experienced in the past. So, a connection question asks about connections between the story and something that someone has read, seen, or heard before. The other type of connection is the common experience shared with others in the group. Here are some generic connection questions. How is this story similar to something I have read, seen, or heard before? How is this story different from something I have read, seen, or heard before? What have I read, seen, or heard about before that connects to this story? Have we learned or experienced anything that relates to something in the story? Let's watch a video for further explanation. Please listen carefully to the conversation and try to identify all of the connection questions.
Hello! Nice to meet you. I'm Mrs. Z. We just learned about a new type of question, and I'd like to talk more about them with you. Connection questions make a connection between the story that you are discussing and things that someone in the group has seen, such as a movie, read, like a book or article, or heard, like a read aloud at school. They can also be questions that make connections between the story and things that others in the group have experienced or shared with you. In the following discussion, students are talking about a story we read this week called Encyclopedia Brown. This story was about a young boy who helps his father, who is a detective, solve crimes in his town. Let's see what connection questions they come up with.
Do you think Encyclopedia Brown could have been a real detective, even though he was a kid our age?
No, I think even though he helped his dad solve crimes, he would need to go to college before he could be a real detective.
I don't know, maybe he could be a real detective even at his age. Don't you think Sherlock Holmes was like Encyclopedia Brown when he was young?
Who is Sherlock Holmes?
Sherlock Holmes was a famous detective. I watched a movie about him. Encyclopedia Brown and Sherlock Holmes are both great at solving mysteries. But I don't think Sherlock started out solving crimes as a boy like Encyclopedia.
I disagree. I think Sherlock was like Encyclopedia when he was young, because to become an expert at solving crimes he probably started solving small crimes that happened around his house and neighborhood just like Encyclopedia Brown.
That reminds me, it is kind of like when Detective Sharon came to talk to us for career day.
That's right. Do you think Detective Sharon ever solved a case like Encyclopedia Brown?
I think so. It sounds like the case she told us about where she found the stolen necklace. She is a really great detective.
This is a great example. Naomi and Mia asked two different questions that made connections between the story Encyclopedia Brown and Sherlock Holmes. Naomi asked, "Don't you think Sherlock Holmes was like Encyclopedia Brown when he was young?" Mia asked, "Do you think Detective Sharon ever solved a case like Encyclopedia Brown?" Naomi and Mia each made connections with something they had seen before, and that is why we call these connection questions. Great job!
If you weren't able to write down all of the connection questions, you can watch the video again. Okay, let's examine some of the connection questions from the video. The students have read the story Encyclopedia Brown, and they are having a discussion. The girl asks if the leading character, Brown, is similar to young Sherlock Holmes. A boy responds by explaining the connection between Encyclopedia Brown and Sherlock Holmes. In his response, he doesn't think that the two stories are similar and offers a reason why. Sherlock did not solve crime cases as skillfully as Brown. In the following discussion, there is another connection question. Do you think Detective Sharon ever solved a case like Encyclopedia Brown? This is a connection question because it asks about the connection between what the students are reading now and what they have read in the past. And the girl agrees and gives reasons. Okay, it's practice time. Before we continue with the next slide, let's review the 6 types of questions that we have discussed. If you find connection questions challenging, here are some tips for you. You can think of the connections from 3 perspectives. First, the story's characters, such as personality, relationship, or actions. Second, incidents in the story, such as problems or the ending. And finally, the big idea, such as the story's lesson, theme, or main idea. We will explain these 3 perspectives in the following slides. Please take a look at this table. And your reading at hand is The Boy Who Cried Wolf. First, who is the character in the story The Boy Who Cried Wolf? The shepherd boy. What does this story and the character remind you of? The book Pinocchio. The similarity is that both of the characters tell lies to others. The second row is events. The story, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, describes a boy who cried out wolf because he was bored. This leads one of the group members to share their experience of a school principal who set off false alarms in order to have fire drills. The last row is about the big idea. This story, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, tells us that nobody believes a liar even when he is telling the truth. And this reminds us of the story Ryan and Jonah because this story stresses the importance of honesty. This shows the direct comparison. So, after we complete the table, we have some possible connection questions. How is The Boy Who Cried Wolf like the movie Pinocchio? How was the warning the shepherd boy gave like the warning our principal gave for the fire drill? And do you think Ryan might have thought about the lesson from The Boy Who Cried Wolf when he decided to tell his mom the truth? These are all great connection questions. So please form a group of 3 students and try to make connection questions based on the 3 perspectives that we just discussed. Here are the hints that help you make good connection questions.